Recalculation unit and calculation order. This is an important topic in the totem, so we will discuss it several times. I will start with the recalculation unit. We are now in a simple table, and the simple table has a row recalculation unit. What does it mean? Here we have a header for the example, and a rows part that has several rows. These are the fields that are highlighted in yellow. They have special code that switches this checkbox to the opposite value the moment this field falls into the recalculation unit. That is, when it is calculated. It has an active code. And there is an active code here. And when the code here is calculated, the checkbox is set to the opposite value. See what happens. I now change this value to F on row B. What do we see? This is a simple table. The code was executed in the header. You can also see that the codes in these two fields were executed. And also the code was executed on the row where the change took place. The change which caused the recalculation doesn't have to happen in the field where the code is. It can happen in any other field. But the fields in that row that have the code calculate that code and set themselves a new value. Let me return the B. We'll take another look. Again we see the header recalculated and the row in which the change happened. Now we'll take these two rows here. I'll take random rows. I'll say F to both of them. We see that the change has taken place. A recalculation in these two rows. And again in the header. That's exactly how the row unit of recalculation works. Here all fields in the row in which the change occurred are recalculated. One or several. If several rows were changed, the codes are executed in those fields that were changed horizontally in ascending order of sort, and vertically in ascending order of row id. When we change these two rows, set G, we choose the total change. The entire third row was calculated first, and then the entire fourth row. The header is recalculated once, and it is treated as a single row. That is, all fields in the header are recalculated from left to right. Here we have two fields also with codes. They now increase their value by 1 at any table calculation. Watch what happens. We refresh the page and their values have increased by 1. This means that the header calculation happens when the page is opened. When opening a simple table, the header is always calculated. If more than one row changes, we now assign F here. Both. The values also increased by 1, not by 2, although we changed 2 rows. The point is that the header is recalculated once. At the same time, when we change in the table, it is calculated the very first. We have already discussed this in previous videos. Placements are calculated from top to bottom. That is, the header, the prefilter, if there is one, the rows part, and where there are column footers and the common footer, they are calculated in this order. Column footer, common footer. The rows unit of calculation is used in Totum for simple tables and for cycles tables. There will be a separate section about them. As you understand, their properties allow these tables to be very large, that is, they can contain 1 million rows, while it will not affect the load on the server. When you calculate several rows in these tables will be calculated exactly those rows, and not the whole table. The second unit of recalculation is the whole table. Here we have a calculation table. We have it placed here in the tree. It already has not only the header, but the column footer and the footer. And let's do the same action here. We change B to F and we see that the change has happened here and in all the rows of the rows part. And if this code were in the footer, it would work too. And the codes in the footer of the columns. If they were here, they would have worked too. The point is that the calculation table and temporary tables have a tabular unit of recalculation. They are calculated as a whole each time, including when loading. So now we have no checks? We refresh the page, and again all the codes in this table have been calculated. They are calculated in the same order: header, rows part in ascending order of sort horizontally, and id in ascending order vertically. And here's a little more detail about the columns footer and footer. Here we set the value of fields A, B, C, D in the order in which they have increasing sort. But that's not exactly how they are calculated. With the default settings, the footers in the columns are calculated first, in the order in which their sort increases. That is, first this field will be calculated, then this field will be calculated, and then the footer outside the columns will be calculated in ascending order of their grade. That is, here will be C, here will be D. In doing so, you have seen that every change in a field leads to a recalculation of all the codes in the table. That's why these tables can't be large. The more rows you have and the more columns of codes you have, the harder it is for the server to calculate this table every time it is changed and opened. This puts a limit on its size. It is not recommended to have such tables with more than 5,000 total cells. They are mostly used inside cycles. This is their main purpose, but it is also possible as an additional option to place the calculation table in the tree separately from the cycles. There will be a whole detailed separate block about cycles. And at the end I will remind you about the error of the order of calculation. That is, if we have here, for example, column sum and we want to add field 1 and field 2, we will write code field 1 plus field 2. We will save and look what happened. The table is updated, but we don't have the values here. The thing is, this is a simple table, and there was no action that led to a recalculation of the rows in the rows part. So what we're going to say here now is to recalculate them manually. It's done like this. It's going to ask if it's sure to recalculate the 4 rows. Here we have recalculated 4 rows, and the values of the code that worked for us here appear. And for this code to work, the sort of this field must be larger than the sort of the fields it is based on. That is, if we put this field by sort, for example, 25, we will have empty values in it. Save. Now they are not present, because again I remind you that this is a simple table. There was no recalculation here, so the codes did not run. We will recalculate again. Here they are 0, because he doesn't see these fields here. They are later in sort and equal to nothing. So we will now return the 60th sort back to it. And if we want to display it elsewhere, that is, we want to display it at 25 sort, there is a show display in other location parameter for that. We can tell it's a different sort, 25. Save. We have to recalculate again, because we changed his sort to 60. Purple shows his original sort. But once again I remind you that it is a simple table. Rows here are not simply recalculated, only when there is a change in them or when you specify that a row needs to be recalculated. Here we have recalculated. It already sees field 1 and field 2 by 60 sort, calculates the value, but displays it by 25 sort. If you don't understand anything, look again. Go to your database or to the demo server. Experiment in a similar way. You can create a temporary table and see how it works. Make sure it works the same way as the calculation table. Don't touch the cycles table yet. When you're sure you've got it all clear, move on to the next video.